Straight games, no filler. This is Status Quo, your weekly podcast for gaming trends past and present and the discussion thereof. My name is Queasy Crayfish, joined as always by my esteemed colleague,
Mars Vindicator.
And this is episode number, I believe it's 26.
26.
So we've got 2 baker's dozens here for you. And
it's a lot of podcasts.
It's a lot of podcasts. It's too many. It's just way too many. And we got another fantastic show lined up for you today. We're going to cover some flake news. You know, what all the big gaming news outlets want you to know is the hottest news out. And we've also got 4 new topics today. We're going to rank the systems, the current consoles out. Talk about that a little bit, you know, the pros and cons of all the different ones. Then we're going to talk about gaming universes and stories and worlds and which ones in particular kind of stand out to us. We're going to talk about fighting game characters, what makes a good one, what makes a bad one, and lastly, we're going to talk about things younger gamers probably don't know, you know, about gaming in antiquity. So those are the topics for this week. Mars Vindicator, let's get into some flake news. Are you ready for this?
Always.
Always ready. Okay, well, number 1. And in case you didn't notice, Red Dead Redemption 2 is out. Well, actually, it's out tomorrow, but we're recording this day before it comes out. But it's out, in case you didn't notice.
It is out. I did notice. I was actually watching a stream earlier today of like this Japanese player playing it, and so I guess it's like out there because it's today there, or tomorrow there, or something. And so, yeah, I mean, it looked like Red Dead Redemption, you know?
I just think it was funny how, I mean, I'm sure Rockstar or, you know, whomever is pouring lots of money into the advertising for this because, I mean, literally every major gaming website is just nothing but Red Dead Redemption 2 right now. If you go to IGN, all 4 of their like top stories are Red Dead Redemption 2 related, and it was kind of absurd to me. It's like, you know, it has arrived, you know, this amazing game from this series. You know, they're acting like this series is so storied and legendary or something, and it's like, okay, it's only got, you know, 3 games.
Right.
So
I mean, well, yeah, and it's like, I mean, that is true. I guess to me, it makes me think like, you know, well, yeah, I mean, shit, like Metal Gear Solid was like that. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 was like, you know, it was like the biggest, it was like the hottest thing smoking, and that was only the 3rd game, you know, when you think about it. I guess it was the 4th, but as far as we were concerned in America, it was only the 3rd, you know, so yeah, I mean, they have to like, yeah, they're like making it that big, you know.
Yeah, they're definitely blowing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that good. I guess the reason I'm not that surprised is because ever since this game was launched, it was like blown up, right? Like it had been marketed as like the top release of the year for like a long time. So
yeah, I
was kind of expecting this. I'm actually like surprised more people aren't like talking about it. Like people I know, I mean.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so.
Well, AstroTurf.
Yeah, we'll see how good it is, you know.
Well, secondly, we have Days Gone has been delayed until April 2019. This is the PS4 exclusive zombie game.
Oh, I mean, that's like, I mean, yeah, we'll get to that later in system rankings, but you know, that's like you're fighting a war and like you're on the losing side and they're like blowing you the hell up, and then they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna shoot these missiles, but that other bomb we're gonna shoot, we're just gonna save it for like 2 weeks. We'll just hit you in 2 weeks. Like that's what that sounds like to me. So, you know, from
the Microsoft perspective, perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, in other delay news, and I know this one is probably going to really stick in your craw, Team Sonic Racing has been delayed 6 months until May 2019.
Next topic.
I just thought, like, man, 6 months. Like, what?
I'm not even gonna touch that. I am not going to touch that.
Well, fine.
6 months? No.
It's for extra polishing.
No.
You know?
Oh my
gotta get
God.
Gotta get it polished.
No.
Gotta polish Sonic's forehead.
God. Oh my God. No, I'm not even gonna touch that.
Done with that one. All right. In fighting game news, Iori Yagami is coming to SNK Heroines as Miss X.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I mean, that shit is whack. Like, that's like that's like them, you know, like they made a game called like Black Fighters, and like all the hidden characters are like Black Akira, Black Paul, Black Ryu, like Black Chun-Li, like yeah, like again, next topic. Like what the heck? Like what is this? The third or the fourth like male to female character they've done? Put the girls in the damn game.
I thought it was only the second one, but it could have been.
Well, no, there's at least Terry and Skullomania.
There's Terry. Oh yeah, oh that's right, Skullomania.
This is foolish.
Okay, well, lastly, we saved the best for last here. For the Fortnite fan in your life who has everything, some new figurines by McFarlane Toys are available for pre-order now. Some Fortnite figures.
I mean,
go to your local GameStop and, you know, get a pre-order.
I mean, this is one of those things that, like, I mean, of course, this means nothing to me, but I mean, Fortnite is that phenomenon. Like, we should be lucky we don't have children, because we'd be looking at this at a totally different way. You know, we'd be calling it, you know, Fartnite, and, you know, messing up the name like they used to call Pokemon Pokemon, you know, like, so, I mean, it makes sense that they have, like, toys to pre-order for Fortnite before Christmas. Like, that actually makes, like, I would actually be surprised if we didn't have that. Like, in this day and age of American society, of course, there's, you know, Fortnite toys for pre-order 2 months before Christmas, you know. Yeah,
I mean, in all honesty, I'm glad they're actual, like, detailed figures and not just Funko Pops or something like that. So
yeah, don't even get me started on those little demons, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm not buying a Fortnite figure.
No. I'll have you know I have my Cuddle Team leader already pre-ordered, so.
Is that a Fortnite character?
Apparently.
I seriously don't even know, which is, yeah, I didn't even know I had characters. God damn, I sound like an old person. Yeah, like I didn't even know. I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I can like try to like make this objective. Like my stuff was better, but like I shouldn't even do that. You know, it's Fortnite.
Mars Vindicator needs to play Fortnite to get with the times.
I mean, I'm not gonna play it, that's for sure. You know, but I'm not gonna say it's bad. You know.
Well,
it's the new thing.
There might be some things that we can say are bad in our first topic for this week. System ranking. So, yeah, there's 3 consoles out right now. There's a PS4, PS4 Pro, there's the Xbox One, One S, and One X, and there's the Nintendo Switch. So, what do you think, Mars V?
Well, okay, first of all, it's funny you said that, because I was like reading this article today, and they were saying like the 4 home console versions of Red Dead Redemption and how they rate against each other. And I was like, 4? Like, what did they make this for SNES Classic or something? And then I realized that they were talking about like 4 Pro, S, and X. And I was like, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's the same system. Right? So, I mean,
Are there different versions for the Pro and the X, or what?
It technically, because
boost mode and whatever the X has.
Because I guess the Pro and the X run at 4K. We run at 4K. The PS4 runs at like 1080, and then of course the Xbox regular one runs at like 976p or some like weird resolution that they always make up. So. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think like there's like this window that good graphics exist in, and like as long as it's within that window, then I'm fine, right? I feel like Red Dead Redemption is going to look pleasing to anyone on any one of those systems, right?
Yeah.
So I've never been big in like separating those things. But yeah, so that's that. So I'm definitely not. Well, at least me, I'm not going to give you a 5 system ranking. I mean, I know because you said 3, but then you listed them, and I was like, it made me think of that.
Well,
I'm talking about for the people out there. I don't want the people to think I'm going to give them a 5 system ranking.
No, that's like silly,
right?
I mean, yeah, like as PS4 is an entity, Xbox One is an entity, and the Switch is an entity. That's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to sit up here and. Well, actually, the PS4 is better than the Pro because of
right.
I mean, come on. But
even though it is,
I mean, so if you had to rank them, if you had to put them in order, what order are you putting them in?
I mean, look, there's no arguments with this. I'm not discussing this with anybody. Okay, it's very clear. PS4 is 1, Switch is 2, Xbox One is 3. That's the end of the discussion. Like. I'm not having the talk, okay? And there's a couple reasons why I'm not having the talk, and I think that ranking is pretty like logically sound. And I mean, yeah, okay. If you want to rank, 4K Blu-ray players, okay, yeah, then I guess Xbox One is at the top, right? But outside of that, or if you want to rank like portability, right? We obviously know what's there. But if we're just talking about like which one of these game machines is the best game machine to have, it's definitely the PS4. Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
It has the most games. It has great exclusives. There's a lot of features, I think, from both of the other systems that it's missing, or at least doesn't do as well. I mean, it's obviously not portable, right? It obviously doesn't come with, in a way, 2 controllers out of the box like the Switch does. It obviously is not going to get Smash Bros. It obviously doesn't allow you to put PS3 games in them and play them. It also doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray player, right? But it just has the best games, and it does everything else well enough to where it is just, boosted right to the top. You know what I'm saying? I think that when you want to talk about like entertainment, yeah, I guess the One does that better, but we're talking about a game system here. Okay.
Well, yeah, entertainment in the sense of like, I want to watch my 4K Blu-rays,
Yeah, that. But, I mean, Xbox does the TV thing cooler as well. I mean, the PlayStation doesn't even have that, But it's like these are like, it's like ranking a car based on which one has the best stereo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just right out of the gate, that's kind of why I made that point about Days Gone. Like, it's not like there's a shortage of PS4 exclusives. I don't think there's any more big ones coming out this year. At least I can't think of, but I mean, this year alone, we got, obviously, we got Detroit, we got Spider-Man, we got,
God of War.
We got God of War. We got like, and then just like even a number of like smaller titles like BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. It has all the genres covered. It has all the, all regions covered. And then on top of that, like you want to talk about like the Call of Duty, Destiny, and now Red Dead Redemption are all are like preferenced on the PS4, they get content first, et cetera, right? So it's just hands down the best place to play games.
Unless you're talking, 4K graphics, I guess.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And frame rate, 4K frame rate dynamic. I mean, PS4 Pro does 4K, but it doesn't maintain, I guess, the same frame rates and everything. I don't know. Now, this was something I was kind of thinking of recently, was I almost could see a case where Microsoft could drop out of the console game, and they wouldn't do it, in the same way that someone like Sega did, where it's like bowing out in shame. They would just kind of like, Xbox is going to become this like, mini PC game console hybrid thing, and that's that. And it won't really be a direct competitor to the other two anymore. It'll just be kind of this like weird entertainment system thing. Because, like, when I see, One X has not even been out that long, and already they're talking about, like, PS5, like, what? Something like that would just make the One X immediately, like, just antiquated. And so it's like, like, this is just a ridiculous game to play, where it's like you're going to upgrade your console so dramatically, and then, your competitor just possibly comes out with some... like a new numbered entry in their series that's like, again, better than yours. And I don't know, it just seems like that would be a huge waste of money on their part to even bother with the One X. And I don't believe it really sold that tremendously. Japan still has no love for Xbox. I just, they have no real exclusive game going on, game in the sense of like, lineup or anything like that. But so I could see a case where they just transition into a different sort of market, and they don't even, make it like a Steam box, basically. Like, don't even try to compete with Sony anymore.
Well, I honestly, yeah. So I'll get to the Switch later, and the Switch is number 2. But when it comes to the Xbox One, in a way, I actually almost kind of feel like that about the Xbox. Don't get me wrong. I understand that it's clearly marketed and sold as a game console, right? It appears in the same space as the PlayStation. It's not with the computers. Like, I get all of that. But the way I approach my Xbox is kind of like that, right? Like when I kind of imagine myself sitting down and like legit playing a game, right? I'm like, and like in front of the TV, I'm doing that on the PlayStation, right? But I get, like with the Xbox, you have like so many other features on it that it honestly it kind of does feel like this. Yeah, it feels like this more like multi-purpose machine at this point. Like you can do things on it, like you can be in parties while you're playing PC games, with people who are like, playing on Xbox. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can get on the party from your PC. Like, you can plug up, like I've even used it like as a spare HDMI port, because it has that pass through in the back for the cable, right? So like you can just plug another game system into that if you want to, and then go to TV on the Xbox One. It'll just show the game system, right? Like it has that feature. It does have 4K Blu-ray, right? And then of course it has, like, if I had to choose a platform to buy a digital movie on, I'd buy it on the Xbox, because then I have it on my, Windows computers, and then also have it on the Xbox, right? So like it really, in a sense, I almost kind of look at it that way, right? Like, I have that Xbox more for these kind of utility like purposes. Even because and those are some of the other like good points I did want to bring out about it. Even honestly, even the backwards compatibility, I look at that in the same way, right? Like it's like a way to play old games, right, without having to have systems anymore, right? Like, because of the Xbox and like Soul Calibur, Soul Calibur 2, I don't need to have my PS2 and Dreamcast out, right? Like, you can buy Guardian Heroes on the Xbox One. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not what you're gonna be first thinking about when you're getting Xbox One X, but it's something that you can do. It's even kind of alleviated the want for like an emulation machine, because there's so many old school games on it. So yeah, I almost do kind of look at the Xbox as like this, like, entertainment center PC with like Windows Lite on it, to tell you the truth. And so I think it's definitely inevitable that Microsoft is going to move fully in that way. The moment that they just kind of meld those OSs a bit more together, it's definitely going to happen. So yeah, agreed.
So, well, kind of jumped over the Switch there, or actually I did, but so how are we feeling about the Switch at this moment in time?
To me, I think I honestly, like, I think when you're looking at like just an overall game system, right? Ever since like the 64, I think Nintendo, I would even say the Super Nintendo. I think Nintendo, when you talk about a home game console and you're really looking at it from a gamer's perspective, Nintendo is always, they can basically never be number one because they're always going to be missing like the biggest games. You know what I'm saying? Like, this will kind of be like if in the 16-bit era, you know, we'll talk about this later with the Young Gamers thing, but like, you know, what sparked that was like, it had something to do with fighting games, right? And we all know in the 16-bit era that like for a while, fighting games were like the game, right? Yeah. And like, just imagine if Super Nintendo didn't have Mortal Kombat on it, right? Or Street Fighter. Like, that seems absurd to us today that system wouldn't have that, but that's exactly kind of what has been going on here today. I will say it's dope that they have Fortnite, right? I think they're kind of making some changes to that with the Switch. So actually, yeah, honestly, going forward, maybe the Switch can overtake that, right? But for the longest time, they just wouldn't have stuff like Call of Duty, you know, or they would just have terrible versions of sports games, or, you know, they just wouldn't have those games. So yeah, like, luckily, like, the most popular game out right now is not very graphically intensive. So, you know, it's on the Switch. God forbid it becomes Red Dead or Anthem or something, you know, cause then they're kind of screwed. But yeah, like, if Fortnite kind of stays where it is and Nintendo keeps making efforts to get that, Nintendo keeps making efforts to get like a good online platform, it could overtake, you know, the PlayStation. But as of right now, Nintendo just is and always has been like this very, very like out in the open, but still kind of like niche thing. You know what I'm saying? Like Smash Bros, even if it is even if it's like maybe like the most popular game at tournaments, whatever, like, it's not Street Fighter or Tekken, you know, and Zelda is not the Elder Scrolls, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you know, or Final Fantasy, which that's kind of a debatable thing anyway. So, yeah, I mean,
I think it's really nice system, but I think it's really nice that they're like you're saying, like, they're actually coming out. I mean, you got Dark Souls Remastered on there now. It's like a full game. It's not like with the Wii, you know, they would come out with like Call of Duty for Wii, but it was like impossible to control because you had to do it with the remote and stuff, and it was just, you know, subpar. Like, it was just like a joke, you know, like, oh, I'm playing Call of Duty on the Wii, like, you know. So now we're actually seeing, like, you know, comparable versions in some cases, and I think that's definitely
a comparable version of like an 8-year-old game. I mean, because
I know, but still, it's like the fact that you have Dark Souls on there, like, it's like, I think that's sick. I mean, like, just taking, like, having mobile Dark Souls, you know, I mean, like, people have been wanting that for ever since it became a possibility. So, like,
no, I mean, most definitely, but I mean, we're talking what, like, I mean, From Software has now made what, like, they're on like their 4th Souls-like game since that one, you know, right? Counting Bloodborne, the 2 Dark Souls, and then now Sekiro. So I mean, like, yeah, like, that's definitely, and I'm not saying that isn't dope, right? Like, one of my favorite things about the Switch is that with the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection, I can play Third Strike, right? Like, that's cool as shit to me. But, you know, I'm just saying that isn't enough to make it better than the PlayStation 4. No, for sure. You know?
But it's just, I feel like they've created a machine that can actually, like, do the same things in some cases as PS4 can do, instead of like the Wii, where it's like you have this weird control mechanism that's kind of like getting in the way of things. I mean, you know, like, Switch has just as many buttons, you know, as the DualShock, so it's like, right. It can actually compete in some cases with those things, right? You know, and you got, I mean, I won't go on too much longer. I guess honestly, the final point I wanted to make here was that we can definitely rank these as game systems, right? And I think you can have that definitive ranking. That's what I was saying, like, that ranking I think is set in stone. But I think the truth of the matter is like, I think for like maybe the first time in a long time, I honestly think we have 3 truly totally different things on the market, right? I don't look at any of these systems the way I looked at, like,
the Saturn versus the PlayStation, right? Or the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo. These I think are like the three, like they're hands down, they're like the three most different systems I think that have ever come out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, I think that'll about do it for that topic. Let's talk about best gaming universes, world stories. Of course, I could bring up my favorite game, which I will remain remain unnamed this time. But I was thinking of like just other things. I mean, I kind of thought of this while I was playing Soul Calibur, and I was like, man, like it was cool how Soul Calibur 6, like, and just in the first opening cutscene, it kind of like clarifies the whole story, which had been kind of like wishy-washy and all over the place up to that point. Like, kind of like tells everything that happens, and like, I didn't even realize that like there's two swords because of like Cervantes and everything like that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I was like, I actually kind of like that universe, the Soul Calibur universe. It's kind of interesting in the way it's all these like different nationalities and everything, and all kind of coming together and battling each other. And I think, one of my absolute favorite ones is another fighting game is Mortal Kombat. I've always really loved the Mortal Kombat gaming universe and just the story with all, Outworld and, all these different realms and all this stuff, and the different relationships between the characters, and generational lines, and masters and apprentices and gods, and all demons, and it's just like there's so many different like just nooks and crannies to that story where some characters are kind of goofy and other ones are dead serious, and some have this kind of martial arts thing and other ones have like police vibe going on, and all doing detective stuff, and like it's just really awesome, well thought out, very inspired story, and I've always really loved that. Mars Vindicator, do you have any like big gaming universes or stories or characters that are really stand out to you?
Well, it's funny listen to you say that. I will say that overall, except maybe like Virtua Fighter, I think fighting game universes are severely underrated, actually. Oh yeah. And I think that's because one thing I think that you get that's really cool about fighting game universes, that like you definitely get this in other universes, but it just feels cool about in fighting games is with, like you mentioned, like generational lines, right? And I think it's kind of a function of fighting games to like want to have characters that are like another character, right? So you can have a new one, but not a new one. So they always make it like somebody's son, or this game is in the past and that's their mother, So, but you always get that in fighting games, and I've always found that to be really cool, whereas like, you're playing as Ryu and Ken for like a number of years, and, they kind of make hints to like, Golken or whatever and like things. And then later on you get him as a character in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like I always found that really cool. Like the whole Mishima family is just absurd, right? Like, yeah, like Jinpachi, Heihachi, and Kazumi. Then his kids, Kazuya, right? And then his adopted son, Lee, and his half-son, Lars, who, like, like you mentioned, like, he only had to find out if he had the devil gene, Yes. And then, he gets with Jun, and then they have Jin, and then Kazuya has a relative, and, Jun has a relative, and it's, and Asuka's related that way. Like, it stuff is, like, really cool. I really do really like that stuff. So yeah, I think most fighting games, I really love their universes. Other than that though, I guess one thing that I really noticed that I think that something that really makes me like a universe, which I think again, usually kind of happens in fighting games, because typically like everyone in a fighting game is usually like a character, right? So like everyone is usually approached as such. Just to compare like Mass Effect to Destiny, one of the things, one thing that really stood out to me about Destiny when I played that, because I had looked at it in a certain way, was how like you have these races of aliens that are only used as bullet sponges, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to go down the Destiny road and talk about the bad game or whatever, but like that I think is just an example of something that kind of kills the gaming world for me, like of a game, is like when you have these people in the game that are like just there to be beat up on, right? Or like are just there to kind of like serve this like one very, you know, shallow purpose, right? What I loved about Mass Effect was like there's like a number of races of aliens, right? And I mean, sometimes in that game you fight humans. Like it's not just like your group versus the aliens. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is like a big universe that everybody lives in, and like depending on the conflict at hand, you're gonna be fighting such and such group of people, right? And that group of people could even be mixed with like humans and aliens, or it could just be one race. Like it could be anything. So I think when a gaming world has aspects like that, where like, you know, like all the parties are like really fleshed out, and it doesn't just feel like you're just, you know, like fighting one group of people. I think that really helps a game world. Now, obviously, I'll make some exceptions, right? Like, obviously, Streets of Rage is just you fighting some crime syndicate, right? But I mean, like, come on, it's like a beat 'em up. You know what I mean? We're not talking about like this huge, you know, game with like story and such. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, Sega just never really did a great job of that.
Well, the funny thing I was gonna say though is that I bring up that game again though to bring out the fact that like. Another part that I think that really helps to make a game world good though is like how you make people sense it, maybe even outside of the story. So yeah, like Streets of Rage does not have a great story per se or great like characters, but I think they did a really good job like capturing this era of the 90s, right? But like between like the visuals and the music, right? So yeah, like it's I mean, it's not like a Game of Thrones level immersive world or anything, but I guess I like that when I play that game, I feel like it has like a specific setting and tone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't even call it like a universe. It's barely even a game world. It's literally just a setting, right? But I do think that that's an example of like another thing that can help a setting out. And I guess that's what I've always loved about stuff like Final Fantasy, even like a Metal Gear Solid. Like I think with that it's more like sometimes like the lack of music or the lack of sound effects or like just what they use, like the subtle things, you know, so feeling those senses, like getting that sensory, you know, stuff really helps.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, well, and also, I mean, Streets of Rage came out at a time where, like, it wasn't really expected that there would be, like, this huge, you know, amazing epic story or anything like that, so I think it gets kind of a pass on that anyway. I feel like if that had come out in today's day and age, it could have had something more special than what it had as far as story and characters go, but...
Right.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Metal Gear Solid, I think, is a great example. I mean, like, that story, that universe is definitely one that, like, you know, you can go onto, like, you know, Wikia and search, you know, for hours and hours reading articles about, you know, different characters and their histories and, you know, how it was mentioned in such and such game that, you know, this happened and, you know, you remember this character, they did this and they said that and they went here and they talked to this person and then they had the son and it was, like, you know, there's just so much to live in.
Do you? I was just like real quick. Do you remember they actually made like a app for that on the PlayStation 3? Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, there was this thing you could download around the time Metal Gear Solid 5 or 4 came out, and it was just like a Metal Gear Solid story app for the PS3. Mm-hmm.
Well, they always had in the games. Usually, there was some kind of like thing in the menus you could go to just read like the backstory and, you know, what the Shadow Moses incident and you know, the Big Shell incident and all this stuff and recap all of that. So, I mean, yeah, they definitely seem to take like continuity and story serious. I mean, of course, you know, Kojima can drastically change things at any time that he wants and somehow make it work. But for the most part, I feel like there's, you know, a pretty continuous, consistent story there. Right. And definitely a unique and interesting one. And just one final one, which may be controversial to Mars Vindicator, but which I've always liked is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, no. I mean, I won't say it's controversial. I used to like the Sonic world. I don't like it now.
You don't like it now? You don't like any iterations of it? Because that's the thing about that universe is that there's so many different versions, you know? Like, there's even within the games, like, there's the Sonic '06 world, and there's the Sonic Adventure world, and that's sort of kind of like the current ones are sort of kind of in that universe, but things have been retconned and changed, and there's no real consistent setting. Sometimes it seems like it's on Earth, sometimes Sonic Forces definitely doesn't look like it's on Earth. Like,
I guess I really like the 2D Sonic world, and I really like I liked the Adventure 1 world.
Adventure 1,
yeah, because
not Adventure 2.
Because honestly, to me, they seem kind of different.
They do.
There was just something about the one world, like maybe because it was like an actual world, right? There was no there weren't any hubs.
It almost felt like it could have existed in the 2D games.
Well, I wouldn't say that much. Kind of. But they were, because they had like humans in like police cars and stuff.
Yeah.
Where I never thought that was there in the 2D game world.
No. Yeah, I guess so. But because so many of the locations are just like callbacks to the 2D games that I don't know. For me, it just always felt like it was some sort of continuation of that. But, of course, also there's, the animated series, the various different ones. There's the comics, there's just such a... and it's funny because, like, they'll all do sort of different things with some of the characters. Sonic has a completely different personality in a lot of the different versions. So it's... Right. I think it's very varied and very interesting if you want to get into it, even though it's, talking animals and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely better than Mario.
Yeah, probably. Save the princess again.
No.
But, next topic, and this could almost go off of that. What makes a great fighting game character? We mentioned fighting games quite a bit in that last section. So, when you're talking about characters and stories and everything like that, I feel like there's a lot of elements that go into creating a good fighting game character. Specifically, there's been a lot of fighting games that have come out recently, and a lot of the new characters I feel like are, like when I see Grow in Soul Calibur, I'm just kind of like, not that exciting of a new character. And I was thinking, what is it about him or Aswell or whatever that makes him seem less good than, Nightmare or one of them or something like that. And I feel like there's a lot of different elements that go into that. And of course, I think one big one that any new character is going to lack right out of the gate, of course, is just legacy. Like, I think a lot of fighting game characters are cool and seem great, largely because they've just been around for so long. If you look at like Ryu or something like that, like there's nothing really like that cool or interesting about his design. He's just like this barefoot, martial arts guy. But, he's been around for 30 years. He's been in every single game, so it's just like he by virtue of him being around for so long and having so many appearances and like always being that guy, I feel like he gets this like kind of cool factor to him, and really all of those old Street Fighter characters do, because like I'm not even a huge Street Fighter fan as far as characters go, but like Dalsim is cool. Like you have to kind of give him respect just because like they've been around for so long. So Mars Vindicator, do you have any ideas or suggestions about this? What makes a good fighting game character or a bad one?
Well, okay, I'll say this. It's pretty deep. And I think I kind of have a bias, okay? I feel like back in the day, the general purpose of like every fighting game was like the world tournament, right? So there was always this, idea to like make these characters from certain countries with like martial arts that usually kind of go with the country or something. And so a lot of times, a lot of these characters were just like, these representations of their nation. And so for me, that kind of became like the mandatory backing that a fighting game character must have, right? Like they must be connected to some country, and they must be connected to some like particular art, right? And they must be connected to some particular language and all this stuff. And so I kind of do have that bias. So I'll kind of go forward with just in saying that to me, that's what helps make a fighting game character cool. Is kind of knowing their actual, kind of like, like regular human history, if you will, right? Like where they're from, what language they speak, et cetera, et cetera. But then I think another layer on top of that is like, so sometimes you can get boring, right? Like, oh, here's another ninja from Japan, right? Like, it can get boring. But at the same time, I think that some fighting games maybe take it a little too far and try to make these characters that like are a little like too ridiculous.
Elisa.
Kind of like Elisa. You just kind of like there's this guy and he's he's of I don't know, Cambodian descent, but he grew up in Alaska and he studies a mixture between Krav Maga and Aikido, and it's just like that's just absurd, right? Yeah. But I do think you can have good characters where, like, for example, you have Ken, right, who's obviously like a white American, but through this like totally believable story where just like this white guy, went to Japan and studied karate, right? Or like you have Paul, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just totally believable, you know what I'm saying? And it's just not too far fetched. And then those characters become interesting as well because then they have this personal history that doesn't necessarily match the identity of their fighting style, right? So I think like either making it like pretty legit or like making it like different but still kind of believable is like another big thing. And then like you brought up characters like Gro. Like I think that's what gets me about a character like Gro, because like I can't identify anything about him other than that he's like weird. You know what I'm saying?
He's an anime character.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's just
as fancy.
Exactly. Like that's just all I see, so yeah, like that definitely doesn't make for cool characters. And I think another thing, too, that you mentioned, which I think is another great point, is the idea of legacy. And I think that sometimes there's new characters in fighting games that have legacy, and that's always really cool. And what I mean by that is, like, take, for example, Zeku from Street Fighter V, right? Like, he wasn't, I mean, he's not, like, 1,000,000% new because he appeared in Guy's endings and stuff. But, like, it was already confirmed that he like trained Guy, right? He just was never a playable character, right? So then like you bring him out as a character. He's a new character, but like, he kind of has legacy. Same thing with Abigail, right? I'm not a huge fan of Abigail, but like Abigail is like with the Mad Gear, like the gang from Final Fight. Yeah. So like I think it's really cool when they can bring out a new character that does still have legacy. You know what I'm saying? In a way, Master Raven is kind of another example of that. That's like a little less so because it's almost more like a skin, like a gender skin. Huge one is Kazumi. That's a huge one. Kazumi and Tekken. Kazuya's mother, like, huge unnamed person, like who is Kazuya's mother, etc. And then she finally comes out, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, like great example. Like she didn't appear in the Tekken game for like 20 years, but she still has like legacy.
Yeah, well, what do you think would like differentiate like someone like that from, say, like Cassie Cage or something like that?
Well,
or Jackie Briggs,
What I would say about that is like, okay, like fighting game characters having kids is like old news, right? So I think the better question to that, I think the better thing there would have been comparing like Jin to Cassie Cage, right? Because the reason I say that is because like Kazuya already existed, right? And like nobody, for the most part, people don't exist without a mother, right? And then like Kazuya's like biology has been a huge part of Tekken, right? So to bring in a character who has a direct influence on his biology automatically makes him dope. Whereas like there was never any sort of like reason or purpose or wonder about Jax's and Johnny Cage's kids.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And plus, like, Kazumi kind of has like, she has this like very interesting like style to her. Was it with like the tiger and all that stuff? Like it's like very unique, and it doesn't really fit in so much like with the others. Whereas like Cassie Cage just seems like it's just like slight redesign of Sonya. Like like there's just I feel like it's just not original enough.
I'm an army daughter.
Yeah, it's just like, younger version of Sonya, and it was always lame. And I think everyone was kind of in agreement, like, out of those three characters, like, the coolest one was, like, Takeda, so.
Right.
So,
no, yeah, most definitely,
So, yeah, just a couple other quick ones. I think colors, also play an important role in this, because I feel like a lot of good fighting game characters usually have like a tie to like a specific color. Like if you think of them, I mean, of course you have like Scorpion and Sub-Zero and stuff like that. But I mean, of course, Mortal Kombat is just filled with the, the color palette swaps and everything like that. But I mean, even if you go into like more recent ones, I mean, like Street Fighter is like, Abel's wearing all this blue and stuff like that. Not that I think he's particularly a great character, but I feel like a lot of characters in Soul Calibur 2, I mean, Xianghua was always, her primary costume at least is always, some kind of blue, and, Tira really has like the green kind of thing going on. I feel like the color tie definitely is an important one there as well. I don't know, any other, or I guess, what would make a really bad character? Or do you have any examples of like some really bad ones?
Bob.
Well, what makes Bob so bad?
I mean, because like he's fat, you know what I'm saying? And
his name is Bob.
Yeah, he's Bob. Yeah. I think another one. I think both. Yeah, I'll just say it. Like I think both. Like I can't remember their names. Like Shaheen and Rashid. Like I don't like either of them. I feel like because I kind of
they're just so like cliche.
Yeah, exactly. Like and it was like
he's got the headdress thing on.
Yeah, like that was cool to do. I mean, not even cool, but it was just, I mean, like, it's a Japanese guy, he's got a karate gi on, right? Like that had already gotten lame by the time Tekken came out, like even Tekken had to change that up, you know what I'm saying? Like, like, we've at least got to make him with some black pants, something. I guess it was white pants, but still, like, yeah, like, so, and I get it, right? Like, because you can kind of see that, like, in games, it's kind of like things become cool at a certain time, and then you get these characters that are kind of like that thing, and so obviously, like, there's kind of been this, I mean, yeah, like, we'll just say it, like, there's been a lot of Middle Eastern related stuff in the news, like, kind of more recently, more than it was, like, maybe in the 90s, and so now it's like, we need some Middle Eastern characters, but, like, what really trips me out about that is, like, I mean, they had Zafina, and I mean, she was pretty... you may say she's more like Egypt, where they're more like, from like the actual like countries that are in Asia, but like she wasn't really even really tied to anything, and she kind of felt like a real character. She kind of had a real place in the story, and it didn't really feel forced, So, I think those are bad characters when you can just like tell, like, oh god, like they just added him in here like just because,
yeah, exactly.
And then I think it was the same thing with like Bob and whoever that fat guy was from Street Fighter, because it was almost kind of like they just added them to be like funny, or like they just added them as like comic relief, or like
Rufus.
Yeah, Rufus. Like it just, I don't know, like it just felt really whack to me. And it's kind of the same thing. Like like, don't get me wrong, like, yes, like the idea of like Ling Xiaoyu fighting Marduk is extremely unrealistic, right? Like, I get it. Or like the idea that she can like throw him, right? Like, I get it. Like, it's truly unrealistic. And I'm not saying that any character's body proportions are realistic in fighting games either, right? Like, I get that. But like, I feel like something like that is just too far out of the reality. And I think it like, I mean, yeah, like we want like body acceptance and all this stuff, but like, I mean, yeah, I don't want this to go there, but it's just like, yeah, it's just like I've always been fat, right? I never felt like I needed a fat character in a fighting game. Like, I'll just say that. I feel like I needed a black one, right? But I never feel like I didn't need to be a fat person. Well, I don't know. Like, that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, like, fat people don't usually participate in like fighting tournaments.
Okay, and I'll say this. Like, Bo Raicho. I never like he was fat, and like I recognized that he was fat, but it didn't really feel like fake to me, right? Because that seemed kind of like a believable thing, right? Like this guy who studied arts and then like he kind of like got fat or whatever, but like he's still like a master, like but like because with Bob, like so much of his character is like it's all about his weight. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, now he like changes his body weight.
Yeah, like, and that's what I feel like kind of made it whack. So yeah, like I'll say that, you know, because I mean, like technically, I guess Ganryu is fat, but I mean he's a sumo wrestler, you know,
right?
So, so yeah, like that makes that just makes characters bad.
Yeah.
Well. Good guy.
I feel like we could go on for considerably longer with.
I think we need a part 2 of this.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, there's some ones that I didn't even get to name. Like I think like Go is in Virtua Fighter is a really cool character. But
you think he's cool?
Yeah, you don't like Go?
Yeah,
I think he's dope. He's a cool design, at least. I don't really know anything else about him, but I think he's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll save that for part 2. You know, a lot of younger gamers probably never even heard of Virtua Fighter, so Mars V was kind of ranting to me earlier on text message about his experience in was it Disc Replay, a gaming store, you know, where it's you know, there's some young hooligans working there, you know, in their early 20s that didn't even know who Guile was.
Yeah, it was kind of absurd. Like they were, and like the picture is on their Instagram. It's like I think it's a Disc Replay store in Michigan. That's just all I'll say. But like they had these little like plush animals, and they were like playing with them, and they were like, haha, don't mess with Yoshi, because you know everybody loves Nintendo, because everybody loves the you know it's Nintendo.
Do things, yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. So don't mess with Yoshi, and like they picked up this like one, and they were like, I don't even know who this guy is, but he better not mess with Yoshi. And like literally, I was like, you don't know who Guile is? What the fuck? Like I said that, and I usually don't say things like that in public, right? Because I mean, like, like I get it, but like it really blew my mind, right? It seriously, because I mean, yeah, like I don't expect every young person to know like Guile, but I'm like they work at a video game store, like they work at like a American pop media store. So if you were to ask me, like if my store sold, you know, games and movies, I feel like a prerequisite of working there is like you must know that the Street Fighter movie was bad and that the games are like legendary. Right, like I just feel like you have to know that, and then I just feel like how could you know that, but then not know who Guile is, right? But then I sat excuse me, I sat there and I talked to him. You know, I was like, "How old are you guys?" And they like mentioned how old they were. Well, another big thing too is even just like we have, especially because we have that meme that's like Guile's theme goes with everything, right?
Oh yeah.
So I was just thinking like, damn, like how have they really not heard of this guy? But I kind of thought about it. I still don't think this really excuses it, but I kind of realized that I think the reason why we know Guile so well, I mean, first of all, there was Sonic Boom, right? And like, I think what made the Sonic Boom so popular was like, it was probably the only thing Street Fighter characters said that was understandable to American audiences, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, everybody used to say, like, Sonic Boom, Sonic Boom. Everybody used to say that, right? And then I realized too that we also knew Guile, I think, so prominently because that was also during the time period when things were like localized to the point of like losing their meaning. And when they made the Street Fighter movie in America, they made Guile the main character, right? Yes. Because they needed Jean-Claude Van Damme, who they also probably have no idea who that is either, which is also kind of weird because I just feel like I used to hear his name all the time, Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know. But yeah, like, and I was like, I guess when I think about it, it kind of makes sense. Because, like, if you were to just approach Street Fighter today, like, he's really technically no different than, like, any of the other, like, non-Ryu or Ken original 6, right? Like, there's really no reason to know Guile more than Dhalsim or E Honda or Blanca, right? But, like, back then, he was definitely set apart from everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And so it really tripped me out. Like, damn, like there's a lot of stuff that exists in the game world that kids just don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that I talk to younger people, you know, at my job quite a bit, and I mean, yeah, I've come across that as well. I mean, even outside of gaming, I mean, I remember talking to a guy about how like the internet had to like dial up, and he just like didn't even believe me. He was like 17 or 18 or something like that. He just like didn't. He's like, "What do you mean you couldn't use the phone?" I was like, just didn't believe me. And I think that was kind of like, eye opening at that point, that like I'd really, a generation really had started to grow up under us. But yeah, I mean, like gaming stuff, like they just don't have any concept of, I mean, we were kind of saying before we started the show, like just memory cards, or not even memory cards, just not being able to save at all. Like in older games, like there's just, like if someone turns the game off, there's just nothing you can do. Like you've just lost all your progress. Like you just had to start over completely. There was no save game feature, and it was like, if there was, it would be like, the cartridge would have like a battery in it and stuff. I mean, this is completely different. Or the idea of like, rumble packs or just anything like that, where like you had to buy this separate utility to plug into your controller to get rumble, and like that was a new thing at one point. Like my controller shakes when I'm playing the game Star Fox 64. Like it's pretty amazing. I feel like there's probably like really old people out there that could say the same about us, that like we didn't understand putting quarters in the machines or whatever. But I mean, we even did that a little bit. I feel like,
right,
like I feel like there's not that much really under like our generation as far as gaming goes. Like we've kind of seen most of everything.
Oh no, most definitely. Well, and honestly, see, like, okay, the reason why I brought up the idea of memory cards was simply because, like, so I think like, okay, well, yeah, like kids today, like, I think they understand the concept that like you couldn't save games in the past. Because, they didn't per se experience it, but I think because we have, like, these, like, little collections or whatever, or even just because there's probably, like, there's probably, like, smaller little, like, 2D games that they play where they couldn't save it. I think, like, I didn't bring up memory cards necessarily for, like, the concept of saving as much as, like, the concept of, like, basically this piece of the console that if you didn't have it, damn near rendered it useless. Right, because yeah, I remember like at Christmas after I got the PlayStation 2 and we were at like Blockbuster, my dad was like, you can get a controller and a game so y'all can play the game together, or I'll buy you a memory card, but you're not getting both. And it was an extremely hard decision, right? Because the game I got first was Metal Gear Solid, right? So like,
you need the
you can't, like, you just you can't play that game without the memory card. You know what I'm saying? And it's like if you
just
lose
leave it on,
right, like exactly.
Turn the screen off so it doesn't burn into the CRT,
right? Yeah. Like seriously though, and there were a couple times like my memory card got wiped, and that type of stuff is devastating. I guess they could lose memory as well today, but yeah, just like that whole thing, and then the fact too that so you have like the memory card. Like when I used to come over and I would like bring, like I had to like bring my VMU, so I could like come over and like play. I didn't just like save it on the cloud. You know what I'm saying? And for a brief time, I mean, 360 had memory cards and the PS3 had like SD stuff, but that's been pretty much gone for like the last 10 years now. So yeah, like the concept of like bringing your data with you on this separate thing, like for a video game, yeah, like it's kind of absurd now,
Yeah, and you may have multiple memovry cards, and
oh, hell yeah,
no idea what's on either of them.
Having to label them, or having to buy that, like, they got extra size ones,
Yeah, I left it at my friend's house. Make sure you bring it to school tomorrow. Like,
right?
Like,
like, you let your friend borrow the game, and then you also have to let them borrow the memory card, right? Because
that was a common one. You're like, oh, here, borrow this game, and then you realize, like, oh crap, like right. I got to borrow the memory card too. Otherwise, I got to start, from the beginning.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
So and that goes right along with like rumble packs, or just any of those like I mean, we just had all these like peripherals, you know, just like stuff. I mean, like, don't even get me started with the Saturn, you know.
Well, why not? What's wrong with the Saturn?
Just light gun, arcade stick, steering wheel, you know what I'm saying? Like RAM carts, you know, like expanding the RAM. You know what I mean? Oh
yeah, well that was a bit with the 64. I mean, well that was one where I remember like Perfect Dark came out and I didn't understand the concept of like the expansion pack.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And so, like, you know, he went and rented Perfect Dark. I'm all excited. Popped the game in, realized that you can only play, like, the combat simulator, you know, in, like, 2 stages or something like that because, you know, have the expansion pack. And then, you know, then you got to go convince your parents to go out and buy you the expansion pack.
Right.
You know, because I think you could rent the expansion pack, but it was, like, I mean, just the, like... The concept of renting an expansion pack, I feel like even back then was like way too much. Like, we need to just buy this. Like, we're not you're not gonna be renting some little red thing that you know jam into the front of the 64 just so you can play the game. But I mean, you had to do that. You had to have that in order to play the game. Otherwise, you could not play the single player at all, and you could not even play the fully featured multiplayer in that game. And there was others that were also like that on the 64. Like, you just you had to go out and buy it.
Right. Well, see, and you know, and then too, to even like talk about that, like I think one of the reasons why that, like, to go back to that article right from earlier, I was talking about like the PS4 Pro Red Dead Redemption is like this, but on the X it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they make these articles as if like back in the day we didn't have the concept of like Marvel versus Capcom having tag on the Saturn and not having tag on the PlayStation. Or I was just like Marvel versus Street Fighter. I mean, like literally like a crippling feature, right? Like, we're not talking about like when they only did multiplayer on Call of Duty with like later PS3 games, because we get that as a pre-generation. I'm talking about like literally like you got a PS4, your boy got an Xbox One, and like on the PS4, like on the Xbox One version of Destiny, there is like there's no Crucible. like what?
Something like that.
Yeah, like just crazy, or there's no voices, right? Or there's no like yeah, like there's no like or like one of the alien races is just totally gone. Because I mean, yeah, like you talk about like with Mortal Kombat, like there's no blood in this version.
Yeah, there's no blood in the Super Nintendo. Or it would just be a completely different game.
You know what I'm saying?
Like Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis are two completely different games.
Sometimes developed by different groups. You know, yeah, and I think we had touched on that before, but yeah, like just like those, yeah, like it's just absurd. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, I think another thing too, which we probably didn't even really think about, but is like very real, is which they probably haven't experienced with a lot of other things, but is like game systems only playing games. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that seems crazy to think about, but yeah, I thought I was living in the year 3724 when my Sega Saturn could play CDs, right? Like that was
you put something
absurd.
In it that wasn't a game, right. And it worked.
And it works. Like, I mean, it has like an interface built for it and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like blew my mind. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like that just does not exist today. You know, I mean, what was the last system to do that? I guess it was like the GameCube.
You mean the only played games?
Yeah, I think it was the GameCube.
It must have been. Well, I don't know. Wii. I mean,
shit. I mean, we had apps. You could watch Netflix on the Wii.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. I mean, not necessarily that it like plays other discs, but like, yeah. I mean,
but yeah, like insert.
Yeah, it had like a web browser. You know, it had like SD cards. You know, yeah, it did plenty of stuff. I mean, it definitely wasn't like the PS3 or the 360. But yeah, and I mean, because yeah, I mean, even the the PS2. And the Xbox plays CDs and DVDs. So yeah, like the GameCube was like the last one. That was the last, because I mean, yeah, even the 3DS, like music player, headphones, that has 3D Netflix on it. You know, so yeah, like the idea of a game system only playing video games. Yeah, convince your parents to buy that, kids. You know, like
it's for this one specific. Well, yeah, it'd be so much easier to like justify these purchases nowadays. Like, oh, let's get the PS4. It can play, Blu-rays. It can, we can have Netflix on there. You can do all this stuff. Like, way easier to justify that to your parents than, because they might want to watch Netflix. They might want to, use it to, to do whatever. I don't know, watch Hulu or whatever they might be into, but like, your parents aren't into the GameCube. Like,
seriously, like, look, like this is no joke. Like when I worked at Best Buy, like some rich old dude came in there and he bought a TV for like some other room in his house, and he was like, and just give me one of those PlayStations. And I was like damn, like okay. And he was like, yeah, like I like to have these as like DVD players because when my grandkids come over, they could like play the games and stuff, right? See, he
just had no interest in the games at
and
all.
he had already established that, like, so yeah, like imagine him doing that in like 93, like give me that Sega Genesis /CDX/32X combo, you know what I'm saying? Like he's not gonna say that.
No.
What I mean?
I mean, you were barely going to... I mean, you weren't buying the... I highly doubt there were anyone that bought, like, a Sega Saturn or a PlayStation just because they could play CDs in it. I mean, like, that didn't even become, like, a relevant possibility until way later, so...
Right. It definitely happened then. But I think it is worth mentioning that I think the PS2 got a lot of boost from that, though, early on. Oh, yeah. That was, like, the cheapest... well, yeah, like, that was the cheapest DVD player. Like basically when it came out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember like the first DVD player my dad had. It was like this big, giant, ridiculous thing, and it was like a 6-disc changer in it, and it was absurd.
Man, like chords, you know what I'm saying? Like just chords, like it's attached to the system. You know what I'm saying? Like the controller. Like they still have those things today, but it's kind of like this optional thing,
just to charge. Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, cores. Well, and just not even having HDMI. I mean, just having to plug up all these different colors and or RFU adapter and
like you go to your grandma's house and you accidentally forget like the AV cable. Like you're done.
Well, and it was just a pain in the ass to hook these up because you had to turn this big ass TV around that weighed 200 pounds and get to the back of it and stick your arm around it and unscrew the cable and
put the cable in
the coaxial, and it was ridiculous.
And a lot of those systems were kind of. Well, it wasn't necessarily like during the generation, but yeah, like I feel like cartridge based systems kind of were like failing while they were out, like power cable don't work, blow into the cartridge.
Blow into the cartridge. I feel like that's a big enough meme to where people like probably know that was a thing.
Right, yeah.
But
yeah, like let's see them do that stuff though. Cuz Blu-rays don't even get scratched. Like blow into the cartridge?
Blow into the cartridge and it'll work.
Yeah,
like dust
or like it might just mess up like partway through the game, and it's nothing else you can do. Like you ever just had your Genesis just freeze? Like, oops.
Yeah.
like it's no auto save or no nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's just
there's so many ways. There's so many ways to. I mean, you'd be like, switching it on and off and stuff, and like,
right.
Hold the switch down, a little bit longer. This is all this kind of like just like herky jerky stuff. It was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. Oh shit. Like, man, another big one. We may have talked about this before, but like video game tip hotlines. Like, that used to be real. Like that used to be like
call this number.
Kids won't even believe. Like that used to be real. Like,
did you ever call?
Yes, I called them. It was quite later though. So and I could tell, right, because it was like you could tell like by this point they were just like hiring people to kind of keep this struggling thing alive because it was for Jet Grind Radio. But yeah, like I called. Yeah, right. Yeah, like that's like late as hell. Right, but they still had it. Sega still had it, because Sega was like, I think only them and Nintendo had it. And the guy was like, yeah, I did, because it was like one stage I couldn't find like one graffiti to spray, and he was like, did you check the graffiti on the left side of the grind rail? And yes, I'm like, nah,
I checked them all.
Like, yeah, I checked it. Yeah, like absurd. Because I was watching something, and they were talking about like the rise of like the NES and how like Nintendo was like hiring people to like come and like you can come play games and get paid and have a job, like giving people hints, so like like in 87 that was probably the dopest job ever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the master of real class track meet, if you need help just give us a call. Like what?
So did you find the last graffiti though?
I did find it. With no help from the Sega tip hotline.
they weren't help. What they just say? Well, I don't know.
Basically. And then later I just.
Well, that's all the ones I know of. So.
Shit. Yeah. Like, let's not even talk about. Yeah. I mean, like. Yeah. Just even the stuff that is just in the books. Like the fact. I mean, games don't even have books. Like for one, but like, you remember like a lot of games just had like stuff you could order in them. Like, yes, order the Sonic, briefcase bag, like.
Oh yeah, the Sonic ones. I mean, I had a Sonic 2. It was a Sonic 1 and 2 strategy guide, and it had. I mean, that was an awesome strategy guide. I hope I still have it somewhere. It was like full color spreads. I mean, every page was full color, but I mean, I had these spreads where it would show like the complete view of every stage, so you could see all the different pathways and everything, like across the whole 2 pages. And in the back, it had like one of those order sheets you could rip out. You could order. I mean, it was like virtually every Sonic product. They had like the board games. Right. There might have been more than one. I don't know. It had like watches, hats, shoes, shirts, everything. Like, it was absurd.
Like exactly. Like, like, man,
cut it out, order it. They used to have that in the backs of like rap albums too. Sometimes.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I don't even want to get too off track. Like, they have like order 80 CDs for 1 cent a piece
from Loud Records. Right? Yeah.
Like you could just order all this stuff. Man, like I remember like that Sega Saturn like night stuff. That stuff was so cool. But of course you couldn't order it because we didn't have phones. Like our own phone. And you try to pick up the phone to order, but your dad's on the internet. Or you try to pick up the phone and order, but your mom's on the phone with your aunt. You know what I'm saying? And she's gonna hear you because it's one line. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, exactly.
Just can't do it,
or it's not toll free, and yet.
Oh my god, yeah, like
long distance fee or something.
Not toll. Long. What the hell is long distance? You know what I'm saying? Like, Mom, can I call Sega? Is it long distance? That's crazy. Like you can't even like a legitimate conversation on the playground was like, man, like I was playing Sonic yesterday and I almost beat the last level, but my mom wouldn't let me call the Sega hotline because it's long distance. So like I just couldn't, and then I had to cut the game off and it doesn't save. So then, now I gotta try to get back there tonight. Like
well, I mean, you wouldn't even say that it doesn't save. It was just understood.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah,
it's like it was just understood.
So now I'm gonna try to get back there. And then you find out about the level selection.
Oil Ocean, Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like hearing. Yeah, man. Like I probably said this before. Like I used to like go to Blockbuster with a note. I mean, go to the grocery store with a notepad and write down cheat codes from the back of like video game magazines. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just no internet. Or you would like hear about cheat code. Yeah, like hearing about a cheat code from your friend and like thinking it's fake and then like it's actually real. Mm-hmm. Like you can unlock what? You know what I'm saying? Like. Man, yeah, it was
Bill Clinton and NBA Jam,
right? Yeah, like nobody's gonna believe that, but then like it's real, or just even that, like buying a fighting game and having to unlock 10 characters,
before you can even
and like 4 more stages.
Or you go to your friend's house to play the same fighting game, and it's like, oh, he hasn't unlocked my favorite character yet, so
right? Or he's unlocked somebody you haven't seen, yeah.
Oh shit, you got Edge Master?
Right. Like, dang, he unlocked Anna Williams. Like, Yeah, I don't know who Guile is.
I feel no, never heard of Guile. Never heard of Ryu. Never heard of Scorpion or Sub-Zero.
What's a fighting game? You know,
no idea. I only play Fortnite.
Right.
That's it.
Sheesh.
I feel like this one could definitely be part 2.
Oh yeah, I gotta think about this now. Yeah, we didn't even talk about cheat devices. You know, yeah, we didn't talk about Game Boy screen magnifiers or like Game Boy lights.
Game Boy lights, because you know that thing is not backlit. So yeah, you needed a light.
Like the worm light. Well, that was like the best invention in the world when it came out. Like
Could play that under the covers,
yeah, or on a road trip at night, like Nyko. When they made the worm light, like the CEO at Nyko had to be like, you know, like renting out yachts,
really feeling himself,
like I got 80 hookers, come over to the party. We just sold 1 million worm lights. You know what I'm saying? Like it just had it had to be crazy. Like it had to be crazy. The worm light, you had to could you imagine buying a light for your iPhone? It's crazy.
It's not bright enough. I can't see it.
It's not bright at all. Like it doesn't even have like the concept of brightness. It's just a screen, you know. My God. Yeah, or like people used to have magnifiers, man, like a screen magnifier. What?
Yeah, kids these days, they don't understand peripherals like that. Well, this has been Status Quo number 26.
Go get your worm light.
Go get your worm light.
Switch.
You'll need it. We'll definitely probably be revisiting a couple of these topics in the future, but for now I think we're gonna call it good. We'll see you guys next Monday for episode 27. Mars Vindicators is feeling the worm lights right now.
I just imagine I go to this replay and I sell them a Game Boy and I'm trying to convince them to give me extra money because I'm trading it in with a worm light, but the employee's 18 and he's like, I don't get it,
What's this?
Okay. Yes. This is Mars Vindicator.
Okay. This is Mars Wormlight. Queasy Crayfish.
Oh, Lord. We're out of here.
Queasy Magnifier. We're out of here. Okay, bye.